We're going to kick off this week's episode of MCrider with a little experiment. So I've got my hat on backwards. What I want you to do is grab something. In my case, I've got this MCrider decal. These really do work best with these decals. So if you want to order some of these, go to mcrider.com/decal. Yeah, it's a shameless plug. But grab anything that's around you. You can use that to perform this experiment. What I want you to do is to hold it in front of your face, and you're going to move it up to the point where you can no longer see it in your peripheral vision, but you're maintaining your horizontal vision. So I'm still looking directly at the camera, and I've got this decal moved up where I can no longer see it out of my peripheral vision. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly move that down, and of course I can see it right now, and I can still see it, maintaining my gaze on you. I can still see that decal as I move it further and further down. So this week on MCrider, we'll discuss why that's important, and you can order some of these if you want. They look really good on the back of a helmet or on your motorcycle. They're reflective, so they work great for that too, and they get me a few extra bucks. So this week on MCrider, let's talk about peripheral vision, why it's important, and then we'll get out on the parking lot and I'll give you a couple exercises that you can do to help you work on yours. Hey, my name's Kevin, and I host a weekly show here on MCrider focused on road skills and road strategy to help make you a better rider. Last week we looked at some fundamental riding skills that every rider needs to master. If you haven't watched last week's video, go and watch that first. Give yourself some time to practice those exercises and then come back here to progress your learning. This week we will continue with some of those fundamental exercises to help you build your skills, and we'll focus not just on how to perform the exercise, but why it's important to build those skills. But let me lead this video off this week with this word of caution. Right now you're watching this maybe in your office chair or sitting on your sofa at home. You're watching this video. You are not training. You're watching. If you want to build the skills that we talk about here on MCrider, you have to actually get off your couch and work on the skills out on the parking lot that we discuss here. It'd be like learning to play guitar by watching videos and never picking up a guitar. You might learn some things about guitars, but you would be no further along at learning to play it. So get out there and practice. So that's my word of advice for you. Get out there and practice. So before we get out on a parking lot, let's talk a little more about your peripheral vision and why it's important. As riders, our focus tends to drop down. We're used to moving through life at a walking pace. If all I ever do is look a few feet in front of me while I'm walking at a walking pace, I can generally avoid most obstacles. So looking down offers me some advantage to do that when I'm walking. As soon as I get on a motorcycle, the world moves at a much faster pace, and the gaze we're accustomed to maintaining does not suit me well at higher speeds. If I want to avoid obstacles on a motorcycle, I have to keep my gaze much, much further ahead of me. Remember that exercise that we did to lead off this video? If you look down while riding, you lose all of the visual information out in front of you. And that's where the vast majority of all the really dangerous stuff is when you're riding. It's out there in front of you. But if we keep our head and eyes up, not only can we see the most important stuff early, I can still maintain a good idea of what's happening closer to me. Remember that peripheral vision works much better lower than it does up high. So we'll be doing some exercises today out on a parking lot, and your natural reaction will be to look down. I want you to break that habit on the parking lot, and it'll pay you back tenfold out on the street. So keep your head and eyes up. Use that lower peripheral vision to your advantage. Not only will you be able to see better on the road, but you'll also feel more balanced on the motorcycle. And you'll be more relaxed on the motorcycle as well, because keeping your eyes out in the distance reduces that sense of speed and helps calm your mind. So let's head out to a parking lot. We'll work on a few of these exercises, and I'll help you work on your peripheral vision. So let's get out of here. Before we get going with the exercises, I wanted to show you how I had the cones laid out. This is that same parking lot we've been working on for the last few weeks. All I did was find an area that's got a lot of parking spaces, and I placed a cone at the end of every other parking space. So you can see that along here where I've got the cones placed. So about 2 parking spaces apart is what you want to shoot for if you don't have a lot like this. About 20 feet maybe between the parking spaces, and that will get you started. Or you can just make your own spots up on your own. You know, you're just out there practicing, so nothing has to be exact. Now that we understand how the cones are set up and how this exercise works, let's talk about the techniques that you're working on here. As I'm doing this exercise, I've got the motorcycle in first gear, it stays in first gear the entire time, and I'm approaching and going through the cones at about 10 to 12 miles per hour. I'm also not using the clutch at all for this portion of it. I'm just weaving the motorcycle in and out and through the cones. We talked early on in this video about using our vision properly, and you can see this orange cone that I'm approaching right down in the front of the motorcycle. If I look down at that cone when I'm doing this exercise, I lose all that visual information of the cones that are further up the course. So what you want to work on is keeping your vision up. So right now my vision is about here on the parking lot. This is where my gaze is, and I'm using my peripheral vision to watch those cones as I go past it. Now this becomes even more important when you get out on the street. If you're looking down and you're just looking a few feet in front of your motorcycle, you're losing all of that important information that's further up the road. So as I'm riding through here, remember I'm keeping my head and eyes up. I'm not looking down at the cones, and I'm just allowing the motorcycle to lean back and forth and weave through the cones. So it's a good chance to get a feel for allowing that motorcycle to lean a little bit. That's something that a lot of new riders struggle with, is allowing the motorcycle to lean underneath them. And this is a good exercise to get a feel for that. So now I've created a little more challenge in the exercise. I'm still in first gear, I'm still not using the clutch, I'm still going 10 to 12 miles per hour, but starting with the second cone, I moved every other cone in about 2 feet. So this creates a little more challenge with the offset weave, and it forces you to lean the motorcycle a little bit further to get through the cones. A lot of riders, when it comes to this offset weave, their gaze automatically goes down again. Remember, you want to keep your head and eyes up. You're looking across the parking lot the entire time you're riding through there. It's important here, but it's so much more important out on the street. You want to see those hazards before you get up to it. As I'm riding this exercise, I'm not using the clutch and I'm not using the rear brakes. That doesn't mean you can't use the brakes and the clutch if you need to in the friction zone to get through here. But something I always find interesting, in last week's video we did the slow ride and we did the pause and goes, and we worked on the friction zone and using the friction zone as we ride. Now I've watched a lot of new riders go through that slow ride and the friction zone exercises, and they develop that skill. Then they get into here and they don't feel comfortable leaning the motorcycle over, but they lose the skill that they gained in the prior exercise. So instead of getting the clutch in the friction zone, if they need it to help get through here, they start struggling again because they've not internalized the skills that they learned in that exercise prior. So if you get into this and you have trouble weaving back and forth like you see me doing, use that clutch in the friction zone. Use a little bit of rear brake to help negotiate through those cones, and it will make it much easier to do so. But carry one skill from one exercise to the next and internalize that skill so that you can use it on demand when you need it out on the street. Just remember, if you're only watching this video, you're not training, you're just watching a video. So get out there, get on your motorcycle, find a parking lot, and work on some of these skills. If you're a member, you've got access to the field guide. Get out there with your cell phone, pull up the field guide, and work on some of these exercises on your own. Till next week, guys, it's Kevin with MCrider, and I'll see you on the road.